Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm Felix Hoddinott. I'm going to be talking to you today about trusted AI. I'm going to go through the 5 Quantexa AI principles that we use internally to support this, and we'll be talking about the work we've been doing with AI for growth. What's this? A basic agenda, we'll do a short welcome. We'll talk a little bit about what we mean by AI security and why it should matter. We will talk through each of the 5 responsible AI principles. We'll refer out to the AI security health check, which is critical support across this, and then we'll allow out of time at the end in order to do a Q&A. Just by way of introduction, this is a partner webinar with AI for Growth, and we're talking very much about the work Quantexa is doing with AI for Growth, particularly around the AI Security Health Check. For those of you that are not familiar with AI for Growth, it's a non-profit alliance connected with government and industry. It is about supporting SMEs and frontier AI companies to unlock AI-driven growth across the UK. We're supporting AI for Growth in the building, connecting and sharing of different materials. And there are 3 pillars. The pillar that we're focused on today is the security pillar. And in particular, we're going to be talking about the AI security health check, which is the key live deliverable from that. I'm talking to you from Quantexa. For those of us that don't know Quantexa, we're a global data analytics and AI decision intelligence company. We help some of the world's largest organizations make really complex decisions, and increasingly these are based upon AI. Quantexa was founded in 2016, so we're just over 10 years old. We've got 900 employees and tens of thousands of global users. As I say, my name is Felix Hoddinott. I'm Chief Analytics Officer and one of the co-founders at Quantexa, and I've been co-chairing the AI for Growth security pillar, as well as being the owner of Quantexa's responsible AI principles. Siobhan.
Hi, I'm Siobhan. I work with Felix at Quantexa. I'm our AI hub lead internally at the organisation. So I look at AI governance and transformation for how the business is adopting and using AI tooling and using LLMs within our business. So one of the first things we wanted to set up with everybody is this idea that trusted AI is secure AI. So we need AI to be secure in order to kind of have a sense of trust in it. A lot of AI security focuses on data security type questions. So where is your data going? Can you trust the output? Can you trust that based on what you said, you're getting the correct response back? And can you actually explain it? So what we're trying to do is explain how responsible AI practices and principles and ways of working can help create the habits that make AI safe. And actually a lot of the things when we think about kind of security are the things we also need to do to make sure people trust in our AI tools.
One of the key tools that we have used for producing responsible AI at Quantexa for a long time is to have a core set of principles. We use a lot of AI at Quantexa. We are an AI vendor and we're selling solutions that are based upon AI. We're helping our customers to deploy solutions, including our components based on AI. But we're also large users of AI internally. And we wanted a framework which could help us ensure that we have a consistent set of principles used in all of these different systems. These are now 5 principles. We've upgraded them this year to include a 5th principle, which is indeed our first principle. And we'll go through each of these in a little bit of detail. The first thing that we are now focused on has always been an implicit principle, but is now explicit, is that AI responsibility and security should be risk-based. We should understand what we are trying to do, and we should understand the risk of it. A critical long-term principle is accountability. While all of us may use AI tools, we as humans remain demonstrably responsible for those AI tools. Fairness and justifiability of AI outcome can be critical. As we automate outcomes, it's really important that we can present that these are the right things to be doing. Transparency and explainability is a critical way of achieving that fairness. If we don't know when we're using AI or what the AI is doing, it's extremely hard to ensure that it's fair or justifiable. And finally, we are deploying critical systems. So those systems must be both robust and secure when we use them. So we're going to drill into those in a little bit more detail.
So the first principle that we've got is the risk-based approach. So this is the idea of proportionality. This is a new AI principle for Quantexa that has existed definitely in the other principles previously, but we've now elevated it to its own, and that's actually our first principle. And that's because there's a number of regulatory drivers. So what we're seeing in regulation is all about proportionality and understanding what's the level of risk here, and therefore these are the actions that you need to take. But it's really useful to think about, even if you're not needing to engage with kind of regulatory regimes to understand. And I think the line on here that I would really pull out is the bullet point under why you should do this, which is that if you have one uniform approach for all of your AI systems, it kind of fails in two directions. Like if you've got really harmless work, you're potentially preventing innovation by having something too heavy that's only fit for purpose for kind of higher risk approaches. And if you've got something that's trying to be too far in the middle or too permissive, you then kind of not getting the chance to really think about the decisions that matter most. So I think there's two parts to thinking about a risk-based approach. So the technology, what technology are you using? Who owns it? Where's the data going? Are you making sure it's not open permission? You haven't got an agent that's got permissions to go and do lots of things that you don't trust it for, that you've not assessed it for. And then also the use case. So this is about thinking about, well, let's say the output wasn't quite right. What would the harm be? So a good example of this might be if I'm using an AI tool that integrates with my calendar, and I say, like, what's my best day next week to go and do a training course, because I know I've got loads of appointments, I'm not quite clear what day is free. And it tells me, oh, it looks like it's Tuesday. Now that's pretty low risk. I'm not using anybody's data. I'm looking at my calendar. And if I then go and schedule an appointment and it turns out the AI made a mistake, it looked at the following Tuesday or something like that, I'm going to pick that up before anything happens. And even if I didn't, the impact is quite limited. Whereas let's say I need to survey something on somebody's house, then, I might be putting their data in, I might be putting in an invoice or an instruction sheet with their personal data on it. So I need to think about where that goes. And then if I'm putting in and asking the AI tool for an actual recommendation on kind of like what's the spec for the survey here, or how tall is the building, so I know what regulations to follow, then there's a much bigger risk, not just to the client, but also to me in terms of like professional indemnity, and I used AI to make that decision, and how does that affect my ability to kind of have protection? So the risk-based approach is really, really key to make sure we can innovate but also protect people.
Excellent. The next principle we have is accountability. And for me, this is an absolutely critical way of differentiating between great uses of AI and questionable uses of AI. We can use these tools. We are increasingly enabled to achieve tasks that might be difficult without AI using some of these tools. I'm sure we've all used tools in order to get access to expertise that potentially otherwise is difficult to access, or would perhaps be expensive to access. But we need to be very aware that the model is not accountable for the answer that comes out of it. We remain accountable for when we use these tools, or indeed if we are deploying a tool, we are accountable for the answers our tool is giving to our customers. So we need to make sure there is always a human answerable. So if Siobhan is looking at her calendar and perhaps there's a problem with her calendar, then perhaps that's quite a low accountability, and the rebooking cost is reasonable, and I haven't taken a big risk there. If, on the other hand, I've started to provide some guidance on building regulations and potentially someone's house is at risk, then it can be both a financial and a physical risk associated there. I need to understand that I have taken that on board. And so I, as a person, need to know this is a risk that I've taken, and I need to clearly and demonstrably say this is something that I am comfortable with, and I know that my system is going to give the right answers. I like the AI security health check questions in this place. So the first one is, can you name the person that's responsible for this piece of AI? If you're turning to a tool, you're using that in your business processes and you don't know who in the business is responsible for that tool, you've probably got a problem. Secondly, what are the actions taken? A lot of the actions that Quantexa do, we may be bringing together a lot of very complicated data, and some of those data is brought together and it's given to a human. And so the human ultimately makes the decision and makes a decision that may be very consequential, but we know that there's a human in the loop. On other occasions, there is an automated decision, particularly if it's a decision not to take a particular action, as a decision to automate something. And in that point, the AI itself is running that autonomously. And so we need to make sure that there are sufficient checkpoints about what we're doing. Because we need to be accountable for something, we need to actually demonstrate that's accountable. Now, you may be in a financial industry, you may be in a regulated industries, you may have some very clear regulation that you need to tick off. You may be in another area where perhaps there isn't quite as much obligation. Perhaps you're working in training on an area like this, and your obligations are perhaps somewhat softer. But you still need to understand what happens if my AI starts treating different people in a different way. How would I justify that? How would I understand whether it was happening? And so can I show why I've used an AI tool for a particular action? And if it goes wrong, is there a way I can record that and improve it? As I say, these are critical parts of getting a responsible AI tool in one place. It's the thing we all should be doing, but it's also a thing that we must be doing. So I think many of those of you that work with data will be very aware of data protection law, and data protection law absolutely applies when you are using AI with data. So we need to make sure that we are in absolute accordance with the law for that particular jurisdiction. A second example of a legal requirement would be the EU AI Act, which you must remember applies not where your AI system is based, but where the people that are impacted by that system are. So if you were perhaps taking a booking for a set of European tourists, your AI could be accountable to the EU AI Act. And so you would have a legal responsibility, and you need to be aware of that and be able to be accountable. It's doing the right thing.
Fair and justifiable. So this is Quantexa, we choose the words fair and justifiable rather than just fair. And I think that's because we know that there's a lot of data being used in AI. We can't always say that we don't want to use data about people, because of course we do, and of course our systems do. But actually, we need to know that it's justifiable and it's sensible, and there's a reason we've done that. So in terms of thinking about is it fair, this is about thinking, how do those outputs behave and how good are they across different types of groups? And when we talk about different types of groups, we're talking about demographic patterns. So it's really thinking about, so if we use this tool for this list of decisions, and we can run that test against that list of decisions, actually, okay, it's made a great decision in 90% of cases. So when we look at the 10%, we kind of say, has it made the wrong decisions just in a particular demographic group? Or is the balance there not what we'd expect? And does it therefore suggest that it's not so good for making decisions for a particular group of people? And sometimes this isn't as obvious as we think, so we might need to think about it more broadly. So if it's not good for a particular geographical area, if it's like an environmental monitoring tool or something like that, then actually the question might be, well, does that disproportionately affect a group of people? So there are lots of statistical ways we can think about this, but then we can also think about it in less statistical ways and sort of take a step back and understand what it means. So yeah, fair is really trying to think about the way this behaves. Does it behave consistently for different groups of people? And how do we need to use it if it doesn't, or change how we use it? Justifiable. So this is really thinking about, can we actually, with a straight face, say this was a reasonable use of this tool in this context, and we stand behind it. So we are using this AI tool for a legitimate business aim, and this is why we think we had good reason to kind of say that this tool was going to work in this case. So I think a lot of this is just as simple as understanding, do you know where AI is being used and have you got a note of it? And do you ever kind of actually take the time as well, going back a step, to make sure it's fair, or ask those questions to suppliers if you're using tools from suppliers? Yeah, and just the points down the bottom there are just sort of re-emphasising the fact that you might not be using any protected characteristics, but the tool could end up still discriminating. For example, if it doesn't work for a certain geographic area or a certain type of housing stock or something like that, what's the actual impact on people?
I think on fairness and justifiability, it's really important to remember that the tools that we are using have learned from a set of historical data. So if there is a correlation in that historical data, so particularly something like social deprivation may be associated with some adverse outcomes, the model will assume that correlation is a cause. And so they will encode and automate and scale that potentially unfair outcome. So we need to be really careful about understanding why our models have worked, which is a nice lead on to our transparency principle. If we cannot explain why our decision has been made, there's a real chance that something like bias has crept into that decision. So if we need to understand not just that the AI model has given an outcome, and potentially that the outcome is powerful, but we need to understand that it's actually justifiable and correct. Some of the models that we need to use these days are extremely complex, but we shouldn't automatically use a complex model. You shouldn't immediately say, I need to achieve a business outcome. It turns out that my LLM is able to do a good job at predicting what this should be doing. If you can find that you can use a simpler model in order to get a similar level of performance, it might be a much better idea to use that simple model, because you know that fairness can be baked in, you know that predictability can be baked in. The other side of transparency is not just do we need to be transparent of what the AI is doing, but we need to be transparent about when AI is in use. We're now in August 2026. We're seeing an increasing amount of material suddenly around transparency. A lot of the big AI vendors are beginning to bake this characteristic into their propositions. And that's because the EU AI Act has cut in, and anyone who is impacted by the AI Act that is based in the EU needs to be told that they're dealing with AI. And again, you may be primarily serving UK customers, but you may not be only serving UK customers. So you need to be really aware of that. So transparency, you need to tell your people when they are dealing with AI. People may have noticed at the start of this presentation, we're very open that we've used AI tools in order to help draft this, but we've gone through this messaging very carefully in a human basis. And that's the type of thing that you should be doing when you're using an AI tool. It is important that we can trace back to the AI that was used to produce it. Otherwise, you are likely to get quality issues. And so a question you may want to ask in your business is, when I am reading a piece of text, do I know whether that was written by a human or by an AI? Because you should be able to answer that. You should also understand why the decisions have been made. So if I make a decision on whom I wish to onboard as a customer and whom I want to exclude, that can be an important decision to the individual. And if I haven't outsourced that entirely to an AI, it can be very difficult to understand why I've chosen to accept one customer and not accept another. So we need to make sure that we've looked at our design, we understand what data the AI is used to make that decision. We need to understand ideally which logic it is used, and so that we can explain why the decision was made. And you should particularly aim to document it. And one of the questions Quantexa use internally is, can we write down the design, the data, and the logic of any AI outcome that we are making?
And our last area principle is robust and secure. I'm just going to read out the top line here because I think it's quite good. So a robust system reliably gives a predictable answer in a timely manner as required for the use case. So there are two sides to it, keeping it robust. So if we think about this as consistency, so if we understand what the model does and we know how good its decisions are, does it kind of do that consistently? And does it do that when things change? And if it doesn't, how do we know when things are changing, so we know that we need to rethink how we've set this AI up? So maybe if you are using a kind of AI conversational tool, we might have a really good idea from testing it and playing around that it gives quite good responses when reading our SharePoint file or our Google Docs based on a particular kind of type of question that we want to ask. But then let's say that set of Google Docs doubles. Is the tool still robust? So, and is it still giving the sort of correct answers? This is like an oversimplified way of describing it, but just thinking about, is it consistent? Does it behave as I need it to all the time? And if it doesn't, what does that mean about when I should and shouldn't use it? And what is it robust to? Is it robust to doubling the information that it needs to know about? Is it robust to me asking 3 questions instead of 1? So that's the kind of robust side. And then secure, this really goes back largely to the idea of data. So got data about other people, so that might be customers, and then data about that we might consider confidential and want to protect. So some of the questions around this are things like multi-factor authentication. So ideally, if that's available and if it exists for you, we should be looking to enable it. And are we clear on what data can and can't be entered? And it will really depend on, so obviously most people will be subject to UK GDPR, but so thinking about UK GDPR, thinking about the legitimate business purposes, and where, with the AI tool that you've got and with the account that you've got and the settings you've applied, where is the data being processed, and is it okay based on your kind of context? Yes, and I think the points below just draw out the fact that we need it to be robust, so we can rely on it if we're going to start using it regularly, because inevitably people do become reliant on these tools. You'd be really surprised how many people that kind of I interact with that sort of say, "Oh, I got logged out of my Claude account today and I had to wait to get the password reset or something, and I didn't know what to do." Or kind of, like even in my personal life, sort of people saying, "Oh, I'm so used to using ChatGPT to help me plan my holidays, I got stuck and gave up halfway through when I had to go and Google it." So I think it's the robust part of it is really acknowledging that we do become reliant on these tools very quickly. And therefore we want to know that they kind of are producing good results. And then, on the data side, any data that you're putting into the AI tool, you're still legally responsible for. And if your settings are not correct on that tool, and if you're putting data into it that shouldn't be processed in the way the tool is going to use that, then that's definitely going to be kind of sit with you rather than the AI provider. So it's very important to think about.
One other aspect that sometimes I look at with robustness, particularly if you're looking at a business outcome, is the repeatability. Mm-hmm. So if you've got building a recommendation tool, perhaps it's a positive that you get a new exciting recommendation each time you run it, and that might be great. If you are making a risk assessment, or you're trying to summarize some complicated matters that you're going to put into a business case or something, that's probably not the case. You probably want to know each time you run through this that you're going to get the same answer. And as I lucky enough to talk to a large number of companies, not every organization is running a test like this. We've got, it's not unusual to meet somebody who takes a tool and puts that live and hasn't really answered the question. If you ask the question 5 times, do you get a similar response each time? We know with LLMs you may not get identical response, but you should certainly get a similar decision out of that. So again, robustness is an important part. So we've run through all 5 of those principles, and hopefully it's clear how they interact with each other. They're certainly not intended to be completely distinct. And we've used examples from the AI Security Health Check in order to support them and explain how we how we can apply those. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that AI Security Health Check and how that's something that's available for you right now if you want to go ahead. So I'm going to see if okay, so I think that I'm firstly just going to quickly play a video, and then you will find a link on the chat for this, which you can go forward and you can actually run the AI security health check right now or in your own time. And the idea is that will help to answer some of the risks that you've got. But I'm going to go through and have a look at somebody do this for us. So we've just seen our very high-speed user go through, pick the use cases that they've currently got live. There are a number of use cases that are already within the health check, and that's been extended as we go. They got their action plan, and they were able to tick off some of those actions and show that they now have a greater level of security than that they did when they started the process. So please do have a look at it. It's very much in a early adopter mode at the moment. We're extremely interested to get feedback on what people are finding useful, or indeed take requests where people think there are additional areas where they think we could have more input. That's the end of the pre-prepared materials we wanted to just share with you. The remaining of the time, we wanted to know whether there are any questions out there on the materials we've gone through, or indeed, if people want to share their own view and experiences of responsible AI practices, say things that they have found that they work well or they do not. I've shared with you, hopefully, very, very openly, the Quantexa experience and why we think we've got some principles that work for us, but we'll be really pleased to hear from others if they want to share.
One question. It's from Peter, and this question is on network security. Accounting might be thought of from the perspective of the audit trail. Would you have any comments on this?
So making sure that we are logging the outcomes of all of the tools that we use can be increasingly important. And I think some areas where perhaps we have not got full guidance in all places is exactly what needs to be logged and retained for a long period of time versus what can be dismissed immediately. Obviously, as you are logging the output of your tools, there are different complexities. You may put a tool there that is supporting perhaps your HR function. You may think that maybe your tool is only answering some very basic questions on when people need to be in an office or what your principles are. But you may be capturing data such as my personal data about staff's members' individual circumstances, which you are going to need to treat with appropriate level of security. Nonetheless, you also need to understand why you have given the staff the recommendation you have from your tool. So making sure that there is a good audit, as you say, of going from the inputs into your different AI tools through to your output. It's absolutely critical that those are secure, that the communication channels that you have are secure, just as it would be with any other AI tool. But I think hopefully we've discussed there some additional points that come explicitly from AI. Peter, did you have any explicit views on that yourself?
He just shared that he would like to see it from the audit trail perspective, and if there are best practices in terms of observability, accountability.
I think, as I say, I think there are a range of guidance, but that's actually a really good place perhaps for us to focus as we start to bring in new use cases for the health check and perhaps give a bit more guidance. So my answer to that one, Peter, is I'm not sure that there is a lot of general guidance that's clearly accessible to everybody today, but that's a great viewpoint.
Yes, and for our final question, what are your own views on and experiences of responsible AI practices?
So I think responsible AI practices are very varied. I think we have all aware of where responsible AI has gone extremely wrong, and you don't have to read many articles on AI in order to see where perhaps people have been using AI in ways that they shouldn't have been. I think there is some great practice. I work with organizations who I think are really on the cutting edge of this, and they are defining approaches which are very much based on what I would see as excellent practice. The Quantexa principles have been grown out of our partners, out of the clients we work with, and out of the type of requirement that come from organizations that we look at. But equally, I'm afraid that there are tools that are put out on the market that perhaps have not been through that level of care. And as I say, it is not unusual, even when talking to quite experienced audiences, if you sit there and say, do we think that this matches up to some sensible, responsible AI practices? Not every instance will. I think it's incredibly tempting to use AI for questions such as recruitment. I think AI can be very powerful in order to do things like answer questions and answers, in order perhaps to research areas that maybe I haven't noticed. If someone gives me a long CV and I say I can't see any evidence that someone's been using AI in this CV, perhaps double checking that using AI is a really responsible outcome. But if I say, who should I hire? Then clearly things have gone quite wrong, and I'm not using AI in a responsible manner.
Great.
Thank you all for your time.